This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
Wall Street expects U.S. oil and gas companies to keep a lid on spending in 2025 and keep their focus on generating shareholder returns, despite calls by President Donald Trump to drill, baby, drill. Big Oil begins reporting fourth quarter results this week, and outlooks for the coming year should reflect the dissonance between Trump's oil and gas maximizing agenda and investor expectations. The industry has pushed in recent years to drive down costs and increase production by using more efficient technology rather than drilling many new wells. Producers also must contend with lower global oil prices as the post-pandemic demand rebound runs its course and as China's economy struggles.
Russian refineries are processing more crude oil in the hope of boosting fuel exports after new U.S. sanctions on Russian tankers and traders made exports of unprocessed crude more difficult, two industry sources said and data showed. Russia has been trying to adapt to Western sanctions imposed in response to the invasion of Ukraine since 2022 by buying new fleet, rerouting oil exports to Asia from Europe and finding new fuel customers in Africa and Latin America. The latest U.S. sanctions imposed on the Russian oil industry in January have made crude exports to key Asian customers in India and China more costly and complex.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
The European Commission will continue talks with Ukraine on natural gas supplies to Europe and will include Hungary and Slovakia in these talks, according to a statement shared by an EU diplomat and seen by Reuters on Monday. The statement was read out to EU ambassadors on Monday morning ahead of a meeting of foreign affairs ministers who will discuss the rollover of Russia sanctions, which must be renewed every 6 months. Hungary has been holding up the renewal of the bloc's sanctions on Russia, the renewal of which must be through a unanimous vote. The deadline is January 31st. As of Friday, Hungary had not yet decided whether to go ahead with the rollover.
Oil prices ticked up but hovered near a two-week low on Tuesday after weak economic data from China and warming weather forecasts elsewhere soured the demand outlook. Brent crude oil futures rose by 42 cents, or 0.54%, to $77.50 per barrel by 0430 GMT. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures were up 34 cents, or 0.46%, to $73.51. Brent settled on Monday at its lowest since January 9, while WTI hit its lowest since January 2. China, the world's largest importer of crude oil, reported on Monday an unexpected contraction in manufacturing activity in January, adding to concerns over global crude demand growth. Next, we have the top news in metal market. President Donald Trump's vow of tariffs on U.S. copper and aluminium imports would result in higher costs for local consumers because of a shortfall of domestic production and the length of time it would take to renew the industry, analysts and industry sources said on Tuesday. In a speech to Republican lawmakers on Monday, Trump said he would impose the tariffs on aluminium and copper, metals that are needed to produce U.S. military hardware, as well as steel, to entice producers to make them in the United States. We have to bring production back to our country, he said.
China's net gold imports via Hong Kong in December fell 84% from the previous month, dropping to their lowest since April 2022, Hong Kong Census and Statistics Department data showed on Monday. China is the world's leading consumer of gold, and its purchasing activities can significantly influence global gold prices. China imported a net 5.26 metric tons in December, down from 33.074 tons in November, when they hit a 7-month peak, the data showed. That compares with 5.23 tons imported in April 2022.
We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector.
France faces its worst wheat exports in decades as a rift with Algeria, a lull in Chinese demand and a dire harvest accelerate a loss of market share for the European Union's top grain grower to cheaper producers like Russia. Shrinking wheat exports are another setback for French farmers, who resumed protests early this year over falling income and foreign competition. As they sell less grain this year, growers are failing to get higher prices as large harvests elsewhere in the world keep export markets well supplied. Exports could also be a drag on France's economy after last year's rain-hit harvests were estimated to have shaved 0.2 points off growth, according to the National Statistics Office.
That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.